The graph of the linear function f is shown. Which equation defines f? All right, so f of x equals mx plus b, usually given to us as y equals mx plus b, but, we're high schoolers now. All right, m stands for the slope. So my slope, if I put a point here and a point here, my slope isn't 1, 2, 3. It's up 2, 4, 6 over 4. Ooh, the x-axis is different from the y-axis. So my slope is 6 over 4, which I know will simplify. My b is minus 8, so I have f of x equals 6/4 x minus my y-intercept, which is negative 8. Simplify that. Now you get f of x equals 3 over 2x minus 8. And that gives me A.
All right, which of the following is equal to sine pi over 5? All right, a little thing about sine and cosine that's important to know just from a graphical point of view is if I were to look at the two of them, everything repeats at 2 pi. Sine, and I'll use red for sine, starts out at 0, 0, peaks out at 1, at pi, bottoms out, and then restarts at 2 pi. Cosine is the same thing, but shifted left half of a pi. So kind of like that, if I can find a way to draw a picture. I'm actually pretty impressed with myself. Now, what this gives us is I want to find out what sine is compared to these guys. So sine of whatever is, like I said, basically cosine shifted to the right, which means there's a trig identity that says that sine x is the same as cosine of half of a pi minus x. So if I'm answering this in terms of cosine, which maybe it wants me to do and maybe it doesn't, I guess we'll find out. But sine of pi over 5 then means it's the same as cosine of pi minus 2 or over 2 minus pi over 5. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this guy in terms of having a common denominator of 10. So this would become 5 pi over 10 if I multiply the top and the bottom by 5. And this will become 2 pi over 10. Now I can combine these fractions, and that gives me 3 pi over 10. Just see. Kind of weird. A company's manager estimated that the cost C in dollars of producing N items is C equals 7N plus 7 or 350. The company sells each item for $12. The company makes a profit when the total income from selling a quantity of items is greater than the total cost. Okay, that makes sense. Which of the following inequalities gives all possible values of N for which the manager estimates that the company will make a profit? So income is determined by me selling items at $12 per item. My cost is given to me already as 7N plus 350. Profit is when the income is greater than the cost. So I want 12N to be greater than 7N plus 350. And you just solve this like a regular old inequality. Subtract 7N, subtract 7N. That gives you 5N. 5N has to be greater than 350. Divide everything by 5. Divide everything by 5. N is going to be greater than 70. And that's it. At a primate reserve, the mean age of all the male primates is 15 years, and the mean age of all the female primates is 19 years. Which of the following must be true about the mean age M of the combined group of male and female primates? Okay, that's pretty much it right there. I mean, what this is saying right here is if I were to combine all the male and female primates, that the average is now going to be 17, but that's not necessarily true. What if you have like 20 females and 10 males? That won't work. The mean has to be greater than 17. Well, that only happens if there's more females, but we don't know if that's the case. The mean's got to be less than 17. That only happens if there's more males, and we don't know if that's the case. And this right here is saying, well, the mean's got to be between 15 and 19, which is true. It's not going to get lower, and it's not going to get higher. So that's that. Pretty easy. The recommended daily calcium intake for a 20-year-old person is 1,000 milligrams. 1 cup of milk contains 299 milligrams of calcium, and 1 cup of juice contains 261 milligrams of calcium. Which of the following inequalities represents a possible number of cups of milk M and cups of juice J a 20-year-old person could drink in a day to meet or exceed? So somebody needs at least 1,000. So there it is. At least, if not more. So that's the at least, but they can exceed, get more than 1,000. M is milk, J is juice. Milk contains 299 M plus 261 for juice. 20-year-old person can drink it, then that's it. That's it. Almost seems too easy, but I don't know. I liked it. It was fun. If 2 over a minus 1 is the same as 4 over y, and y can't be 0 because that would be undefined, and a can't be 1 because that would be undefined, what is y in terms of a? Whenever I see a fraction equaling a fraction, I think crisscross applesauce. Now, this is also called proportions, but I'd rather call it crisscross applesauce. What you do is you multiply the diagonals together, so 2 times y, multiply the diagonals together, so 4 times the quantity a minus 1, and you set them equal to each other. I'm supposed to get y all by itself. It's not, but what I want to do first is distribute that 4 because it would probably look a little bit cleaner if I did. 2y equals 4 times a is 4a, and 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Y is not all by itself, so I'm going to divide everything by 2. When you divide an entire equation by 2, you divide everything by 2. So y is going to equal 4 divided by 2, which is 2. Tag the a along for the ride. Minus 4 over 2, which is 2. Y is 2a minus 2. Speaking of a, that's my answer. A.
In the figure above, ABC, that guy, is similar to EDC in that order. So that would make AB similar to ED. That would make BC similar to DC. And that would make, I guess, CA similar to CE. All right. Now, these don't, I know I'm marking congruent markings, but they're similar, which means they're proportions. I'll be careful. BAC corresponding to CED, BAC corresponding to CED, yeah, because they're alternate interior angles. Oh, okay, wait, if they're alternate interior, that's kind of what I'm doing here. I see, I need to start reading the problems. ABC corresponds to CDE. So that's basically what I'm doing. So since these guys are similar and these guys correspond, that means these guys are going to be equal because similar triangles have equal angles. Not necessarily equal sides, but equal angles. So these guys are equal angles, which makes these parallel. Is that what they want us to do? AB is parallel to DE. Yeah, I needed to do a better job reading these beforehand, but you know what? You saw the thinking process, and it wasn't that bad of a thing to see.
Y is x cubed plus 2x plus 5. Z is x squared plus 7x plus 1. It's asking us to do a little substituting. So replace y with that guy. So y is going to become that guy. Replace z with this guy and do a little bit of substituting. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to replace that y with x cubed plus 2x plus 5. Okay, and I'm going to add just regular old z, so x squared plus 7x plus 1. Distribute. 2 times x cubed is 2x cubed. 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times 5 is 10. If there's either nothing or a plus sign in front of a parentheses, the parentheses is useless, so let's get rid of them. Like that. Let's see what combines. I can combine 3x or 2x cubed with nothing. So that was fun. That was worth an underline. Let's put it in standard form. So let's go with the x squared. That combines with a whole lot of nothing. And then I have 4x and 7x. Those guys combine to make 11x. And then 10 plus 1 is 11. And that seems to be C. If a to the negative 1/2 equals x, where blah, 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 which of the following equations gives a in terms of x? So I have to solve for a. Now, the first thing that I notice is I have a to a negative exponent. If I start out with a to a negative exponent, like that, a negative exponent says that if this was a fraction, I move the negative exponent to the other side of the fraction bar and make the exponent positive, like that. Also, a to the 1/2 is the same thing as the square root of a. So I write that out. I can multiply both sides by root a. So that happens. I get 1 equals x times root a. Divide both sides by x. So I have 1 over x equals a, the square root of a. In order to get a all by itself, you square everything. That undoes the square root. 1 times itself is 1 squared, which is just 1. X times itself is x squared, which is x squared. And now a is all by itself. So like I said, 1 squared is 1. X squared is x squared. If I move a over here to the left side, that matches up with that. Dunzo funzo.
A biology class at Central High School predicted that a local population of animals will double in size every 12 years. The population at the beginning of 2014 was estimated to be 50 animals. If P represents the population N years after 2014, then which of the following equations represents? Okay, so I view this as kind of like a unique way of doing exponential decay. Exponential decay means you have your initial amount, you have whatever you're doing, okay, 100% plus your rate to the nth power, n being, what you're doing every 12 years or whatever. It tells us that we double, which is an increase of 100%. A is my initial population, so that's going to be 50. It has no matter. These numbers mean absolutely nothing. Okay? If it doubles, it increases by 100%. So 100 plus 100% is 200 or just 2. This is where you have to be careful. If it was every year, you would leave this as n. But since it's every 12 years, and if I wanted to do like 7 years or something like that, I have to divide it by 12 so that if since it doubles every 12 years, if I wanted to do 7 years, I would have to do 7/12 here, which gives us that equation right there. The answer is D. So kind of tricky, not too bad though.
A research assistant selected 75 undergraduate students at random from a list of all students enrolled in a psychology degree program at a large university. She asked each of the 75 students, how many minutes per day do you typically spend reading? The mean reading time in the sample was 89 minutes. Really? Okay. And the margin of error for this estimate was 4.28 minutes. Another research assistant intends to replicate the survey and will attempt to get a smaller margin of error. Which of the following samples will most likely result in a smaller margin of error for the estimated mean time students in the psychology degree program read per day? 40 undergraduates. Okay, so you got 75 undergraduate students. Okay, you found out that they read 89 minutes. Great. If you were to interview more undergrad students, your margin of error would be smaller. So that's basically what we're looking for. 40 undergraduate psychology degree program students selected at random. That really won't help. 400 undergrad students selected at random from all degree. That definitely won't help. 300 undergrad psychology degree program students selected at random. That'll be nice. 300 undergrad students selected at random from all degree programs. Nope. So the more people from what you're trying to find, if you're focusing mainly on psychology degrees, you want people with psychology degrees. And the more you have, the less likely you are to make a mistake. And that's what margin of error stands for, how likely a mistake can be made. So the answer here is C. Stats. In the complex number system, which of the following is equal to 14 minus 2i in parentheses times 7 plus 2i in parentheses? So I know what's going to happen. I is the square root of negative 1. Okay, so I is I. I squared is the same thing as saying the square root of negative 1 squared. Now, what a squared and a square root does is they cancel each other out. So I squared technically is negative 1. So this is what I'm going to do. This is a FOIL problem. 14 times 7 is good gravy. I don't even know what 14 times 7 is. 98. Did it. 14 times 12 is 168. All right, so let's bring it back. 168. But there's an I attached. Don't forget about it. I can handle this one. Negative 14I. Negative 2 times positive 12 is negative 24I squared. Now, remember what I said. Okay, remember what I said. I squared is the same as negative 1. So this is 98 plus 168I minus 14I minus 12 or minus 24 times negative 1, so plus 24. Okay, add like terms. So 98 plus 24 is 122. 168I minus 14I is 154I. There you go. The average number of students per classroom, Y, at Central High School can be estimated by using that ugly, terrible equation right there. X represents the number of years since 2004, and X has to be less than 10 or equal to 10 for some reason. I guess they don't care about 2005 or whatever. Which of the following statements is the best interpretation of that number in the context of this problem? All right, well, so that number, 0.8636, is the slope. Okay, the slope when you're talking about a word problem is also known as the rate of change. That's supposed to be an F. The rate of change. Now, what the rate of change stands for is slope is rise over run. So the rate of change is the change of the Y values over the change of the X values. Right? My Y values is students per classroom, and my X values is the number of years as time goes on. So basically, what this is saying is, even though it says that X can't be 0, but if we were to start at 0, right now there's 27 kids per classroom. And then we add an eighth of a student at the year after that. And then we add another eighth of a student, and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. So this is how many, or what the increase is over time in students per classroom over the years. So this number itself is not the average number of students per classroom. What A is saying is we are estimating that there are 0.86 kids in the classroom. No, what kind of class has 0.8 kids? So B doesn't make sense either, because B is saying that there's 0.8 kids in 2014. No. C mentions the estimated yearly decrease in the average number of students per classroom. Now, that would make sense if this was negative. Decrease means your slope is negative, you're going down. What we have is an increase, since that's a positive number. Every year, we add a little bit less than one kid per classroom, so the answer is D. Be careful of the wording. That's how they get you here. It's the wording that's the trickery. The graph of y equals 2x minus 4 times quantity x minus 4 is a parabola in the xy plane. In which of the following equivalent equations do the xy coordinates of the vertex of the parabola appear as constants for coefficients? All right, so I need vertex form, but first off, I want to find the vertex. So there's other ways that you could do this, but I think what I'm going to do to find the vertex here is I'm going to do a little bit of foiling. So this could be written out as 2x squared minus 8x, minus 8x minus 4x plus 16. Now, what you're noticing is this, that's supposed to be a 16. This is the answer for A, but this is not asking us to just, foil and simplify. This is asking us to find an equation where the vertex can be seen. Now, the way you find a vertex is you take x equals negative b over 2a. Now, b is always the coefficient attached to my x value. So negative 12 all over 2a is going to be 2 times 2, because a represents the leading term in a quadratic. Negative 12 is positive 12. 2 times 2 is 4. 12 over 4 is 3. The x value is 3. What's the y value going to be? Well, if I could take 3, plug it into there, so I get 2 times 3 squared minus 12 times 3 plus 16. You become 2 times 9, which is 18, minus 36 plus 16. 18 minus 36 is negative 18. Negative 18 plus 16 is going to be negative 2. So this gives me a vertex of 3, -2. Vertex form is the equation y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. H is the 3, k is the -2, and a is the same a that you see here. Okay, same a that we see here. So when I put this all together, I get y equals 2 times the quantity x minus 3 squared plus -2 or minus 2. So I don't know why they put plus -2. I guess they wanted to really show that, the y coordinate's -2. But this guy is the same as c. There you have it. There's other ways that you can look at this guy right there and find out that your x value is 3. If you look at this and use zero product property, you would know that my zeros are going to be 4 and 2. And so 4 and 2, 3 lives directly in the middle of that. It still requires all of this work here, but this does the job. Does it just fine. A researcher wanted to know if there's an association between exercise and sleep for the population of 16-year-olds in the United States of America. She obtained survey responses from a random sample of 2,000 U.S. 16-year-olds and found convincing evidence of a positive association between sleep and exercise. When they say association here, I prefer to use this word, correlation. Okay, I need to get my pen. I prefer to use the word correlation. Same thing. I guess the College Board would rather deal with association than correlation. So they found out that positive correlation between exercise and sleep. So the more exercise you get, the more sleep you get. Actually, I probably should have put that the other way around. The more sleep you get, the more exercise. I don't know, same thing. Which of the following conclusions is well supported by the data? There's a positive association between exercise and sleep for 16-year-olds in the United States. There's a positive association between exercise and sleep for 16-year-olds in the world. Using exercise and sleep as defined by the study, an increase in sleep is caused by an increase in exercise. For 16-year-olds in the United States, using exercise and sleep as defined by the study, an increase in sleep is caused by an increase in exercise. That's it. It basically says it. She found convincing evidence of a positive association. So there's a positive association between exercise and sleep. I don't understand. I guess this one doesn't make sense because it talks about the world, not the United States. This one says using exercise and sleep as defined by the study, an increase in sleep is caused by an increase of exercise. Technically, that doesn't mean anything. And the vice versa. This has to do with world. So yeah, this is a really stupid problem because it gives you the answer. And I guess it just tries to throw you off with words. I don't like it. The semicircle above has a radius of r inches. A chord CD is parallel to the diameter AB. Okay. If the length of CD is 2, so this is 2/3 of AB, what is the distance between the chord and the diameter in terms of r? All right, so this is what I'm thinking. It mentions r a lot. R is a radius, so you're an r, you're r. AB is 2r. I need to find that length right there. What I do know is if I connect that to that, I get r. Okay, so this right here is r. There's a rule that says if I connect two parallel lines, a chord to a diameter, that it cuts this into two equal parts. So CD is 2/3 AB, so CD is 2/3 2r. which would make it 2 times 2 is 4, 4r over 3. So all of CD is 4r over 3. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that guy right there and make my own right triangle, where what I know so far is I know that that is r. This guy is half of 4r over 3. So if I multiply that by a half, I now revert to 2r over 3. So let's write that out. 2r over 3. That's very sloppy. I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared, because what I have is I'm trying to find that missing length there. I have a radius or a hypotenuse and then a leg there. So I'll call you A, you can be my B, and you'll be my C. So a squared plus 2r over 3 squared equals c, which is r squared. Okay, my job is to solve for a here. So I have a squared plus 2r over 3 times 2r over 3 is going to be 2 times 2, 4. R times r squared. 3 times 3, 9. Equals r squared. I'm going to subtract that from both sides. Subtract it from both sides. Okay. And that gives me a squared equals r squared minus 4r squared over 9. If I take this square root now, how do I want to handle this? I'm going to make this 9r squared over 9 so I can combine these fractions. What that gives me, and let me move it over here because I'm running out of space, is I now have a squared equals that minus that over 9. 9r squared minus 4r squared gives me 5r squared. I have to square root everything to get a all by itself. The square root of 5 is the square root of 5. The square root of r squared is r. The square root of 9 is 3. And in a very long roundabout way, I found my answer, which is that guy right there. Whew! Gross. Jessica opened a bank account that earns 2% interest compounded annually. Her initial deposit was $100, and she used that expression right there to find the value of the account after 2 years. Jessica's friend Tyshawn found an account that earns 2.5% interest compounded annually. Okay, that's nice, actually. Tyshawn made an initial deposit of $100 into this account. At the same time, Jessica made a deposit of $100 into her account. After 10 years, how much more money will Tyshawn's initial deposit have earned than Jessica's initial deposit? Round your answer to the nearest cent and ignore the dollar sign when gridding your response. Well, I don't have to grid nothing unless I'm doing the griddy. Let's discuss Tyshawn. We'll do Tyshawn, T for Tyshawn. This formula comes from the idea of compound interest formula. Now, since this is talking about something that's being done annually, I can use the idea that we start out with $100, right? You have 100%, you add the decimal rate, and you take it to the time power. Okay, this is compound interest done annually. If it wasn't annually, we would have divided by n and n attached here, but I don't see that. So if you're wondering what the x is 1 or 100% plus whatever rate it gives you. So Tyshawn starts out with $100, right? So $100, just like Jessica did. You have 1, and you're adding 2.5%. 2.5% as a decimal is 0.025 taken to the 5th power. Is it 5th power? No, it's taken to the 10th power because we're talking about 10 years. Okay, so if you did a little bit of math, 100 times 1 plus 0.025 is going to be 1.025 to the 10th power. Okay. Now, this is part of the calculator section. So it would be very, 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 very difficult to attempt this without the use of a calculator. If you plug all of that in, you'll find out that Tyshawn has a current investment of $128, 0.008, so we'll put 0.01 cent. So got a penny in there. That's good. Now we have Jessica. Jessica's formula is going to be very, very, very similar, but Jessica was 2% compounded annually. So hers is going to be 100 times 1 plus 2%, which is the decimal 2 cents. All of that to the 10th power. Okay. That simplifies to 100 times 1.02 to the 10th power. A little bit of calculator trickery, and Jessica ends up being $121.89. Actually, it's 0.899, so we will round this to 90 cents. Now, the question that's being asked is, after 10 years, how much more money will Tyshawn's initial deposit have earned than Jess's initial deposit? Okay, so Tyshawn is 128.01. Jessica is 121.90. Okay, you subtract the one from the other, you subtract the one from the other, and I'm doing this the old-fashioned way, $6.11. Wow, after 10 years, a whole $6.11. Worth it.
This problem is a nightmare. The function f is defined by that cubic function right there. What do you notice? A big fat c right there attached to x. C is a constant. Got to find that constant out. In the xy plane, the graph of the f intersects at the x-axis at 3 points, -4, 0, a half 0, and great, another letter, p, 0. What that looks like graphically is, if I were to draw out that cubic, all right, I would have it go through -4. I would have it go through a half and some rando spot we don't know called P. Now, if a line or a curve goes through the x-axis, that means this guy right here has a factor, x something. That something is going to be the opposite of this. So x plus 4, x minus a half, and x minus p. So that times that's going to equal that. So I have x plus 4. I got to figure this out. I got to FOIL that out twice. So x minus a half. Okay. X minus p. Not going to be fun. So let's FOIL this chunk out first. I got x times x, which is x squared. I've got x times -1/2, which is -1/2 x. I've got 4 times x, which is 4x. And I've got 4 times negative a half, which is minus 2. All of that is going to be attached to x minus p. Now I can simplify that to be x squared plus 3.5. So I'll put 7 over 2 because I can. X minus 2 times x minus p. Now I have to FOIL again. X cubed times x times negative p. So negative x squared p plus 7 over 2 x squared minus 7 over 2 xp minus 2x plus 2p. Yeah. So I want to compare this to that as much as possible. So we have x cubed minus, let's make it plus, let's factor out everything from these two x squared. So I have x squareds hanging out here. So that's going to be minus p plus 7 over 2, like so. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say plus, and I want x all by itself over here, negative 7 over 2 p minus 2 plus 2p. Now looking at these guys, that is not the same as that because that has a 2 attached to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply 2 to everything. So I'm going to multiply 2 to u, 2 to u, 2 to u, and that becomes 4p. Now that I have 4p, that 4p is exactly the same as that 8. So 4p equals 8. Divide everything by 4, divide everything by 4, and p equals 2. My job is to find out what c is. C is in front of x. Also, 2 times negative 7 over 2p minus 2 is in front of x. I now know that p is 2. So if I multiply that by 2, I get negative 7 halves times 2. So I'm going to pretend that this is 2. That crosses out. That gives me negative 7 minus 2, which is 2 times negative 9, which after all of that is negative 18. That is the hardest SAT practice problem I have ever done. And maybe it's not the best way to do it, and that's kind of like a theme with a lot of my problems. Maybe what I do is not the best way to do it, but I'm not going to lie. That's what entered my head, and it was a nightmare. Have fun.
Line L is graphed on that plane right there. If line L is translated up 5 units and right 7 units, what is the slope of the new line? If all I'm doing is taking this guy right here, wow, that looks awful, so let's pretend I didn't do that. If all I'm doing is taking this guy right here and moving it, the slope will not change. So this slope appears to be up 1, 2, 3, over 1, 2. So the slope appears to be negative 3 over 2. If you move the line, the slope doesn't change, so the answer is still negative 3 over 2. Not bad.
All right, so what do we have here? The height of 9 people and length of their first metacarpal bone. So we got a scatter plot. We measured 9 people out. Length of their first metacarpal bone between 4 and 5, and this is how tall they are. How many of the 9 people have an actual height that differs by more than 3 centimeters from the height predicted by the line of best fit? All right, so what am I doing? So each notch is a centimeter. So you were 1, 2, 3, and what am I trying to find? Differs by more than. So you are more than, you are not, you are more than, you are not, you are not, you are not. You are 1 and 2, 3, and barely 3. So you are more than, you are more than, you are not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Weird. Which of the following is the best interpretation of the slope of the line of best fit in the context of this problem? Well, slope is rate over change, or the change in the y values over the change in the x values. The y values are your height in centimeters. Your x values are your length of first metacarpal bone. So basically, for every centimeter in your metacarpal bone, you have a certain amount of height that you're expected to be. So it's the predicted height increase in centimeters for 1 centimeter increase in the first metacarpal. I like it. Let's see what the other ones look like. The predicted first metacarpal bone increase in centimeters for every centimeter increase in height. No, I don't agree with that. That's opposite. The predicted height in centimeters of a person with a first metacarpal. Nope. And that's the same thing. Nope. It is A, because as you increase your first metacarpal bone, you increase in height, not the other way around, which this B is the opposite of that. So we're going to go with A. Based on the line of best fit, what is the predicted height for someone with a first metacarpal bone that is a length 4.45? So we've got length of first metacarpal bone. We got 4.5, so 4.45. If that's 4.4, 4.45 is right there. And using my line of best fit, if I go up here and match that right there, we are right spot on 170. So I'm going to go with 170 right there. That's my answer, and I'm sticking to it. In 1884, yes, my birth year, U.S. presidential election candidates James Blaine and Grover Cleveland received a total of 401 electoral college votes. So looking at this, it looks like I have a system of equations that I have to figure out. So unless there's anything crazy, the first equation's easy. The number of electoral college votes Blaine received, and so Blaine is B, was 37 less or fewer than the number of electoral college votes Cleveland received with system of equations. All right, so it gives me a total here. So Blaine plus Cleveland received, that's a C, received 401. So that eliminates you and eliminates you. I don't know why they gave me those two options, but they gave me those two options. Blaine was 37 fewer than Cleveland. So I had my total equation. It compared Blaine to Cleveland using those words. Blaine was is the same as Blaine is. 37 taken away from C. Speaking of C, that's going to be my answer. Which of the following could represent the graph of the linear equation y equals mx plus 3, where m is a positive constant? Well, if m is a positive constant, that means it's a positive slope, so it looks like this, which means it doesn't look like u, and it doesn't look like u. Plus 3 is my y-intercept, which means my y-intercept is positive 3. not negative something, so it's not U, and that leaves me with C. What value of P satisfied the given equation right there? So this is just a regular old equation with variables on both sides. So let me rewrite it out. Let me rewrite it out right there. Let's subtract 2p from both sides. If I have variables on both sides, I like getting rid of the smaller one because it makes the variable positive. Not that that matters. 6 equals 8 plus 5p. 5p. Subtract 8 because now it's a two-step. So I've got negative 2 equals 5p. Divide by 5. Divide by 5. And p equals negative 2 over 5. Yeah. Pretty easy. The equation y equals the square root of hg over x relates to the positive numbers hg, x, y, which equation correctly expresses h in terms of gxy. So basically, I have to take this guy, let me rewrite it out, and get h all by itself. Okay, so let me do that. In order to get h all by itself, what I want to do first is square both sides to get rid of that big square root in the way of everything. By squaring a square root, they cancel each other out. So now I have y squared on the left. That equals hg over x. Let me get rid of x first by multiplying x to both sides. So that gives me on the left side, x times y squared is just that, x times y squared. The x's over here cancel out. That leaves me with hg, home and garden. What am I getting by itself? H, so let's divide everything by g. Let's divide everything by g. And now I have xy squared over g, which is d. Ooh, an absolute value equation. If x is a solution to the given equation, what is a possible value for x minus 1? Negative 8. That's it. Basically is saying, hey, x minus 1 is that guy, so let's put a smiley face in there and say, well, what could smiley face be? Well, only negative 8. Probably the best way, another way of looking at it, that's just the common sense way, but the realistic way of looking at it is whenever I have an absolute value of stuff equaling 8, I take that stuff and I split it into two equations, the original and that stuff equaling the opposite. All right, if I add 1, that gives me 9. If I add 1, that gives me negative 7. So what is x minus 1? Well, x minus 1 is either going to be 8 or it's going to be negative 8. And negative 8 was the only option here that was given to me. But again, I look at this and say the absolute value of what is 8? What is what? Negative 8. The absolute value of negative 8 is 8. Done. Don't overthink it, even though I overthought it anyway. But I showed you how to overthink it, so like and subscribe. A research institute conducted phone and mail surveys. The total cost of conducting these surveys was $5,000. The line shown models the possible combinations of phone and mail surveys that the institute could have conducted. According to the model, what is the total cost of each phone survey? So if I didn't spend, so basically I could look at a point here and say, if I spend $5,000, that would be 75 mail surveys and like 70 something phone surveys. What they care about is how much the phone survey was. So if I didn't spend any money on mail surveys, I could spend maximum or I could do a maximum of 125 phone surveys. So I could do 125 phone surveys and spend $5,000 on it, which seems like a ridiculous amount of money. But if I divide by 125, divide by 125, that gives me 200? No. Ugh. I don't know if this is a no calculator section or not, so I'm just going to do the old-fashioned route, baby. 125, 5,000. It's 40. It's 40. I did it. So $40 each phone survey. That's a lot of money for a phone survey. Better be worth it. Fake problem.
Triangle ABC and triangle DEF each have two angles measuring 35 and 35. Which of the following additional pieces of information is sufficient to prove that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF? So there's 4 congruency theorems that don't have to do with right triangles, and this is not a right triangle. We have SSS, which means if 3 sides of one triangle are congruent to 3 sides of another triangle, they're congruent. It's not what we're seeing here. I have SAS, which tells you that if 2 sides and an included angle are congruent, then the 2 triangles are congruent. Well, that's not what I have. I have 2 angles. So my other 2 options are going to be if I have an angle, an included side, and an angle, I can show that these 2 guys are congruent. Or I could do AAS, which means I can have 2 angles that are congruent and a non-included side, and that would be sufficient enough evidence to show that these 2 guys are congruent. So if I were to say, oh, no, that third angle is good enough, that's not true. There is no such proof as AAA. Now, if you have 2 angles here, this is going to be 110. This is also going to be 110. Those triangles are going to be similar, but I can't prove that they're congruent. So the third angle will never be a proof that shows 2 angles or triangles are congruent. Let's see what BC looks like, that guy, and EF. Now, this has promise because these 2 guys are A, non-included side, so I have AAS, but let's just double check. I'm going with B, but let's see what C looks like. I'll use a different color. C says AC, which is a non-included side, and DE, which is an included side. So this is basically mixing angle side angle with angle side. So C is not it because you can't do that. So it's got to be B. Okay, no additional information is necessary. That's not true because you can't just say, look at these 2 angles. Are they congruent? No. So these are the 2 options that we could have used. That one didn't work out. That one did. AAS works for this, and B gives us the solution that we need. Which expression is equivalent to y to the 1/8 times y to the 3/4 to the 3/2? So this is what I have to do. Let's do that guy first. Okay, this is saying something times something to the something. You always deal with the exponent first. When you have an exponent in parentheses to another exponent, you multiply exponents. So I have y to the 1/8 still lingering there. You multiply these numbers. 3 times 3 is 9. Multiply the numerators. And 4 times 2 is 8. So there you have it. Okay. Now I have y to the stuff times y to the stuff. Add the stuffs. So that gives you y to the 1/8 plus 9/8 is 10/8. We know that simplifies to y to the 5/4. Now, they don't want that. They want to turn that into a root or radical form. So the number on the top gets attached to your y as normal. The number in the numerator still gets attached to our y, and the number in the denominator acts as the root. So that's what it's going to end up being, which gives us a. That was fun. I like that one.
Which expression is equivalent to that guy right there? I'm not going to show a ton of work, but the one thing I am going to do is understand that if I have either a plus sign or nothing in front of a parentheses, that I don't need those parentheses. So I have 5x cubed minus 2x plus 1. If I have a negative in front of a parentheses, I distribute the negative. So negative 2x cubed negative 2x negative 1. So that makes the 1's go away. 5x cubed minus 2x cubed is 3x cubed. Okay, boom, boom. And negative 2x and negative 2x combine to make negative 4x. The answer is C.